Hello everyone and welcome to Lush and Salty Aquariums. My name is Stefan. Thank you for coming to my channel. Okay, so I'm sitting on the floor looking at my UNS 25T. It's about 5.5 gallon fish tank. I have made some changes with this aquarium. In about the third month, certain things revealed itself to me, and I had to do a little brain salad surgery. Nothing major, I mean, in a way major, but not really. And the result, while it looks similar to before, is A, it's easier to work with, and B, it's at least as pretty, and maybe if not prettier. In a sense, I converted this tank to my only truly Walstad style aquarium in the fish room here, in that there is no hardscape anymore, which is what I ended up doing. I took out a piece of driftwood that was going up vertically all the way up and out of the tank here. And I also removed a couple rocks which had been obscured anyway. You know, it's funny when we do our hardscapes and they look so cool, we always forget that excuse the sirens in the background. That's Chicago, baby. We always forget that the plants, if they do all right, are gonna obscure hardscape in any aquarium. And if we're not really thoughtful about how the hardscape and plants are going to work out, they will obscure a majority over time, especially with good light and CO2. And with my propensity and major fondness for aquarium plants, you know, you stir all that up, and I came to the conclusion that I was just going to pull out that piece of driftwood in the rocks, because in a vertical tank, the footprint, you know, and especially a small nano tank like this, you only have so much real estate to grow plants, and that has been a really interesting challenge for me, and I think I have solved it, but I'm always open to new ideas, both from myself and from the fish community. So the first thing, when I removed that piece of driftwood, it allowed me way easier access to deal with the equipment in the back and the plants down below. Every time I was going in there with the tongs, I kept bumping into it, and it was driving me crazy, honestly. And also the rocks, as I said earlier, they were quickly eclipsed by plant growth, if not shadowed by it, then literally grown over, and it just receded into the substrate. And you know, I couldn't plant anything there, so it was covered by flopping over plants as opposed to vigorous stems. And now that's what I have here. So in place of the driftwood, I put some cuttings from my common bacopa there in the center, with a little bit of the red bacopa in the foreground there. The red bacopa has been an interesting challenge for me. It grows way slower than the green, and it's a lot more difficult. I mean, these little pieces here, there's one or two, maybe three total. They look pretty good now. But in the back where they were before, and I pulled all those out, they just weren't getting either enough light, or as they got taller, the leaves became weak. And, you know, the classic deficiencies started to show up. Little pinholes, some algae. So I got frustrated, and when I pulled the wood out, I pulled all of those out and just fattened up this bunch of Ludwigia Super Red, which is a crowd pleaser, at least it is for me, and I should have probably just had that as the main plant there. It should grow up darn near to the top here without losing its integrity, both in the lower growth, and it might even look nicer and nicer as it gets up to the top. That's not a lead pipe certainty though. This plant starts to lose its mojo after, you know, 12, 14 inches. And I mean, it'll continue to grow, but the bottom might lose leaves and become sticky. And so I'm still playing around with how to maximize the impact from this wonderful, relatively easy to grow super red, so aptly named. And you see all this fish here, that's all new too, and I'll get to it. So I've got some Blixa japonica on either side here, and I like the way that frames the tank. And I've got Bucephalandra in the center, all attached to little pieces of dragonstone, which we can no longer see, but it anchors the plant and allows the epiphytic growth, suitable place for it to take hold. And then a terrific foreground of pure dwarf hairgrass. There is no other plant in this foreground, and so I'm really happy with how it's taken to the UNS contrasoil with a gravel and sand cap, and it's doing really well. Now the light is a twin star, their smallest light, the only one that will fit on this footprint using its bracketing, which even now I'm not using exactly right. I have it flush with the glass because I want to push as much light down as possible. And then finally I have some Rotala, two different kinds, a green strain, and then the one that shows pink here, I think that's grandiflora, or it could be an H-Ra. I forget, honestly, folks. They're all so similar, and I'm just not perfect, and I do forget. But I know I have two different strains in there, and I've been playing around with how to get a desirable outcome from that bunch. You can see I cut a few of the tops as they start to flop over, as Rotalas will do, and that's a nice effect. But you can also trim those super duper pink and red and just push them into your plant bunch. You don't even have to get them into the substrate. That's a technique called topping, and aquascapers do it all the time, so I'm emulating that in this aquarium. I've got one really cool crypticorn balance, and that is doing what the driftwood used to do. Now that's been in there and it was behind the driftwood. Do you see how it creates a really neat centerpiece and then flows over and back into itself? I really like that, and I think it's awesome. I've got on this ledge, which is used for moss. I've got my colony of Hydrocolte tripolate, or I call it Japanese clover, and I just wrapped some around with a thread, just like I do the moss here. And man, these things are awesome, folks. There's no algae, no brownness, and you get this great ledge, and you can pull it out and use the moss wherever you want, or you can keep it in there as a ledge. The shrimp love it. If I had certain, maybe these ember tetras, might elect to scatter some eggs in either one of these two. But I love to try new things, and while I'm not sure what the long-term plan is for either of those two plants on the ledge, it's pretty cool. And that real estate was empty. These stems, all of them, even the fast-growing Bacopa, it's a lot to get 14, 15 inches up. And in a vertical tank, you're dealing with more height than length or width. And so in that meantime, I got these two occupying the mid-ground. So the fish, folks, there's about 14 ember tetras in here. From two different places, so I've got a neat DNA mix. And what a delightful fish. I thought long and hard about what I was going to put in here as a primary species, and I kept coming back to the classic ember tetra, because I knew even if I fiddled with this aquascape, if the parameters went from very acidic to a little bit harder, in these first 3 months of this aquarium, the ember tetra is not going to suffer. And these, you can see the fat females, the nice vigorous red, and there's a red or pink ram's horn snail for, you know, a color and size comparison. I've got some autocinklus, just 3 because it's a small tank. I know, you know, they're happiest in groups, but I think 3 and up is great for any tank. And, you know, even in a pinch for a super small tank, 1, I suppose, but I don't do 1 of anything, hardly. Maybe a betta fish or a honey gourami in some instances. What else? You know, and here's the special fish. I got a group of 9 of these albino pygmy Coryodoras. The pygmy Corydora is relatively common, and it's very common in aquascaping and in nano tanks, but I've never seen the pygmy strain. I'm not getting a great shot of these, but they're adorable. They're tiny as hell. I mean, there's some juvenile Neocaridina, so you know, they're twice the size at most, and you see one kind of going by, a sort of wildy version of Neocaridina, which are all from just capturing out of my other tanks. A lot of blue dreams. But these albino pygmy Corydora, I got them from Moonlight Aquatics, a new place out on the West Coast. I learned about them from Alex at Fishery, and they have great prices and some very unusual fish, like these albino Coryodoras. There's one behaving for us. There's 9 in here. And they honestly, I'm not lying to make a good video, they do come out in mass and fiddle about in the front there, especially as feeding comes. There's a couple more boisterous ones in the midwater. Camera having trouble finding what to focus on. But they are pygmy Coryodoras. I have never seen, that one looks like a pregnant female. She's very fat, right? Given how tiny the fish is, it almost looks like a little marble. And spawning in here would not surprise me whatsoever. And so there's no more hardscape. You know, I don't think. There might be one more piece of river rock, but basically it's all plants on a UNS contrasoil with a sand and gravel cap, and epiphytes along the middle, a carpet in front, and then some really cool, fun, but easy stems in the back. I do have CO2 in this aquarium, and I only have a tiny hang-on back filter and one of those set to 78 degrees heater, which you can't even see anymore. It's behind the rotala. So 9 Pygmea Corydoras albino strain, about 14 ember tetras, 3 autocinklus, and a crap ton of nondescript Neocaridina. There's a black rose, there's a lot of blue dreams, some blue jellies, and then some wild stuff. And they're all gonna interbreed and become basically just a bunch of bugs. And you know, if I had to do that all over again, I would probably get like 12 beautiful yellow with the golden back, and they would really pop. But I could never capture all these out, and if I put yellows in here, which I still might do, they will inevitably interbreed and just create a brown version anyway. But in the short term, yellow would be a cool color for this aquarium. There's nothing in here that is really yellow, and the blue dreams and the wild caught, or wild, I always say that, wild caught, wild type, they sort of get lost, but they're doing a great job, right? So remember, if it's not their primary purpose, the secondary purpose for a shrimp in your tank is to clean and get in nooks and crannies and clean some more. And so with a minimum of current down here, I don't have any algae, knock on wood. There might be a teeny bit right in front of, that's just on the glass though. I just need to razor blade that. There's none in the grass. What you see that might look like algae is a piece of Christmas moss or willow moss that maybe got dislodged from here, and I'll have to be mindful of that because it will happily start growing in here and intertwine with the dwarf hairgrass, which happens in one of my other tanks. As a matter of fact, the video before this will show you the result of a carpet that has a mixed fauna in it: moss, dwarf hairgrass, and in particular sage and Helanthrium tellum, different kinds of micro swords. And that's a great, beautiful carpet, but I wanted to see if I could get a pure carpet of dwarf hairgrass. And I will tell you, you need light and CO2 if you really want to make that happen. You could get a half-assed version of this without a brilliant light and without CO2, but I find that that's, you know, ultimately gonna look like one of those lawns, like your lawn does now out there at the end of summer, kind of scraggly and a little burnt out with holes. And I wanted something lush and plush. Blixa japonica is awesome in here. I've had to cull that, pull it, trim it, whatever you want to call it. And those are just a couple specimens that have created those two bunches to the right and left. Bucephalandra with those purples and greens, transitioning up to the super red, and then the orange, pinks, and greens of the Rotala. What do you guys think? By the way, on the left is my brine shrimp hatchery, so that's not very aesthetic, but this is, you know, my fish room, and that's where it is. But at least I turned the light off, and I hope my melodious, loud baritone overtook the sound of any bubbles from both this tank and that hatchery. I usually run the light 24/7 on that, but I turned it off just for filming this video. If you have any questions or want to learn more about this setup or what I am doing or the creatures, by all means hit me up. I try to include as much information as I can, like where to get these plants, how to plant them, how I've done it, what I learned, what I did wrong, certain other vendors, other fish tubers that have inspired me. But I always forget something, and I beg your pardon for that. Okay, everybody, as always, keep your hands in the tank, albeit carefully, and ciao for now.